everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am so sorry I have not kept with this channel. I actually just keep up with my Instagram. If you haven't followed it already, go follow it. It's at Latina Life. And I just kind of wanted to come back on here and give y'all an update of how the end of the semester went, everything that happened between midterms up until today, just because I did leave y'all kind of hanging and I didn't include so many videos throughout the semester. But don't worry, I'll give you all the tea. So as you can see, I'm not where I usually live. I'm actually back home with my parents. I did finish the semester and I miss them so much and I wanted to come back home. So yeah, this is maybe why you don't recognize my usual background as I have on my Instagram. But yeah, so let's get started. Also, sorry for the noise. I do have family over and they are making tamales and champurrado and all that good stuff and tortillas, so I'm sorry if you could hear them in the background, but I just needed to get this video out and I couldn't wait any longer. So today I will start off with how the semester went at the beginning, just because I did give you all some insight into how the semester went with orientation. I'm just gonna start off with how it went in the beginning. And honestly, the greatest challenge with starting law school was figuring out, one, a rhythm, like how I'm gonna keep up with the readings, how I'm gonna keep up with getting cold called, how I'm gonna keep up with these random quizzes that would show up out of nowhere, how I'm gonna have to figure out to make friends again, like to figure out how to be alone. Like, it was honestly a lot, and I think I want to start off with talking about like the greatest challenges, which usually is, at least for me, it was the readings. And I say that because, one, we'd get 200 to 400 sometimes pages of readings a week, and it was dense material. It was material that I had little to no knowledge about. Like, what am I gonna know about bonds and stocks or life insurances? Like, I had no idea. Like, being a first generation Latina, like, I've never heard of how a bond works. I've never learned about how stock work or how like estates work and all of that stuff. So it definitely was like a big learning curve for me, because one, I didn't understand how that worked, and two, the language. So like the words that they used were difficult words. Like, my vocabulary was not there, and I kid you not, I would like Google every single word, and it would take me so long to get through the readings. And sometimes I'd feel discouraged because I'm like, whoa, like, I'm taking so long to get through this reading. Like, why is it taking me 3 hours to get through like 30 pages? And I love to read. I love to read. And when I see that it's taking me 30 freaking hours to get through 3 pages, I was like, what? Like, am I doing something wrong? Like, it was definitely a lot of trial and error, but I feel like throughout the semester, or at least the first half of the semester, it's literally just learning to see what works for you and what doesn't work. I did find myself like Googling a lot of things, using Black Law's dictionary. I would literally sit down and do a reading and I'd have to Google like every single word, and in my textbook I'd put, oh, this is what this word means, oh, this is what this word means. And sometimes I'd get really annoyed and I'd be like, no, like, I just want to get through this reading, I'm not gonna Google every word. And I'd see that I wasn't understanding as much. So that was a big trial and error for me. I have to be okay with not knowing every single word and being okay with not understanding everything. And like, it definitely sucked because when other people would do the readings, at least what I saw or what I would hear is, yeah, I did it like in 2 hours, right? Versus me, it took me like 4 hours. Which, you know, you don't always have to listen to what people say, because people do lie in school just because they want to seem like they're on top of everything or that they have everything together. But sometimes it does get to you. And I would get upset with myself because I'm like, whoa, like, it's taking me so long to get through this reading. I have to stop every word to Google. And on top of that, I have to stop to watch a YouTube video on how a fucking stock works. So it definitely was a very big challenge, but it's so doable. I think I just had to accept the fact that I'm not gonna know everything and it's okay. And moving on from there, the biggest second challenge was definitely cold calls. I kid you not, there was times where I was sitting in class and the professor was talking about a reading and I was like, where was that reading on the syllabus? Like, where was it? And like, I would literally sit there freaking out because I'm just like, oh my god, like, I didn't do this reading. I don't know where the professor got this reading from. Like, I have no notes on it. I literally begged God. I was like, God, Diosito, si me quieres ahorita, make him not call on me. Because if he calls on me, I'm gonna look like the stupidest person on earth. So luckily, I never got called on when I didn't know or I didn't do the reading. But later on, I figured out like it was a super mini case within the case that I didn't pay much attention to, but I did read it. So things like that would get really scary, and like luckily all my cold calls I was prepared. Luckily for all my cold calls I did do the readings and I had really good notes. And the thing with cold calls is that your professors don't always give you feedback, so they're not always gonna say good job, you got that answer right, or they're not gonna be like super impressed, because this is the bare minimum. You doing the reading is the bare minimum. So when I would get cold called, I would expect to see some reaction from my professors, and they wouldn't give me a reaction, and I had to be okay with that. And I had to be okay with the fact that I wasn't gonna get told good job, you know. So when I figured that out, I was like, okay, like I'm just gonna give it my best shot, and whatever I read I understood, and let's keep it going. So I never had like a cold call where I was like 100% lost. Like I always had an idea of what was going on, which was good. And aside from feeling like I had so many readings to do, those 200 to 400 pages of readings, something that did work for me was the Pomodoro, I think that's how you say it, Pomodoro method. And if you haven't heard of that method, basically you set a clock for 30-40 minutes, maybe an hour, and it times you, and after that time is gone, you could take a little break, and you could set that break to be 5 minutes, you could set it to be 10, 15, whatever you want. But I feel like that really worked for me, because before I was sitting down for 3 hours straight trying to get through a reading, and I felt like I wasn't getting the big picture sometimes because I was just trying to like get through it. Versus when I did the Pomodoro method, I think every 45 minutes I would stop and I would take a 10-minute break, and I kind of would just like go get some water, go get some coffee, do something else, and then come back to the reading. One, I felt refreshed, and two, I felt like I understood a little bit more because I actually took some time to stop and think about what I was reading. So that for sure worked out for me. Thing number two that worked out for me was definitely making friendships and having study teams. So a lot of you on Instagram asked me to talk about this, and I promised y'all I'll make a video, so here it is. So some of y'all asked me how did I make friendships and how did I establish a study group. So to start off, number one thing I would say is at orientation and during orientation, talk to a lot of people, say hi to a lot of people, get to know a lot of people. I know it's not as easy, at least for me, because I think I'm like an introvert, but once you get to know me, I'm like all in, like 100%, like I'm an open book. But at the beginning, I'm not. So it was kind of hard for me to establish those relationships, especially because I was brown too. And I'm not gonna lie, there was times when I felt like I didn't fit in 100% because one, I didn't know what to talk about with other students that didn't look like me. Two, I turned around and there was only like 3 other people that looked like me. And 3, we had nothing in common. So it was definitely hard to get over that. And even to this day, after the semester ended, I'm really working on trying to get over the fact that I'm a brown woman and they're not, and it's okay. So aside from that, I sat next to this girl that we actually already had known each other from UC Davis. So when me and her realized that we were in law school together, we kind of just clicked again, and then we just kind of started vibing, and then from there, like, we just realized that like we're literally almost the same person and we have a lot of the same values, and we both are women of color. So we clicked right away, and from there everything else kind of came naturally. My study group, the same way, came naturally. I don't know, like the study group just came to be so randomly. Like it was not like, I never expected to have the study group that I had, but I love it because we're all so different and we all bring different things to the table. And at the same time, we have such a good balance. And with the study group, it kind of just happened. We didn't kind of like talk to each other and be like, hey, study group. No, like, it was super natural. Like, we just kind of gravitated towards each other, and then from there we would just kind of establish like, okay, this is going to be a study group, this is going to be a regular thing. And from there, I think it was just pretty solid. Like, we all worked together well. We had some the same interests. We were very different too, but at the end of the day, we all balanced each other out and we worked super well together. So if to wrap it up again, number one thing to do if you're trying to make a study group is just talk to people. And number two is be open, because I was not open and I was very closed off and I didn't want to make friends, because in my head I was like, no, I already have my friends. I don't need to make other friends. And I was like, I have nothing in common with these people. Why do I want to talk to them? Like, what do I have to say to them? And through the semester, I really had to stop being stubborn with myself, and I had to be open with myself and say, you know what? No, like, these people could teach me something that I don't know, and I need to be okay with stepping outside my comfort zone. So, I mean, it was definitely difficult for me, at least, to try to break out of my shell, but for other people, it was so easy. So I think you just have to give yourself time, be graceful with yourself, and be patient, because it doesn't come naturally. And to me, like, I never thought that I was going to be the person that was going to be super stubborn and didn't want to talk to anybody. So moving on from making friends in study groups to social life. So at the beginning of the semester, I had a pretty good balance with my social life and with studying. Iba a jaripeos, iba a bailes. I would go out to, you know, have fun with my friends and stuff, go out to the movies, all that type of good stuff. But you have to have very, very good discipline, organization, and you have to hold yourself responsible and accountable for what you said you're gonna do before you're gonna go have fun. So for me, there was many times fui a Grupo Firme, fui a bailes, I went to go see so many artists and Maluma, all this type of fun stuff. But I held myself accountable. I was like, you know what, before I go, I need to make sure I get this much amount of reading done, or before I go, I need to make sure that I at least get done this, and then when I come back, I'm gonna do this. And most of the times it worked out perfectly, except once. I didn't get to finish my reading, but it was fine because it was only one time. So you definitely have a social life, but you just have to know how to manage yourself and not go crazy. Like, you can't just go blacking out every weekend. No, like, you have to have some sort of like, okay, this is my limit because tomorrow I have to wake up and still study. So very responsible, but you could still have fun, and as long as you plan it out, you'll be fine. That was the beginning of the semester, and now I'm gonna talk about the middle of the semester, which was sometime around September, end of October. And I'm gonna be completely honest with you all, I cried every single day for almost 3 months straight because I had so much stuff going on. I had family stuff going on, I had personal stuff going on, school was picking up, it was going to be midterm season, it was my first time taking midterms. Like, I think back and I'm just like, I do not know how I went through that and I survived it, because it almost broke me down. And to be completely honest with you all, I went to therapy. I started going to therapy because I just couldn't take the burden. Like, it was just so much for me to deal with. And right now I'm not ready to talk about it, and I don't want to talk about it, so I'm not gonna say what exactly was going on, but just know that I cried every single day. And there was times that my friends would text me and be like, hey, where are you? Like, you haven't been to class, and you know, like, where are you? And I wasn't in class because I was at home crying, or I was just so upset and I literally couldn't get out of bed. And I think back and I'm just like, wow, like, I had so much going on, and I'm so proud of myself that I got through it. And I thank God that he allowed me to continue following my dream and gave me the strength to somehow get up out of my bed some days and put on a happy face and go to class. Like when I think back, I'm just like, I literally hated my life. I hated my life. I was going through the mud. Like, I was so, like, lost. Like, I don't know who I was back then. Like, I think back and I think of how much I was suffering, that I don't remember events. Like, I'm just like, no, thank you. I don't want to think back to that time. I don't want to look at that part of my law school experience. But at the end of the day, it is my law school experience, and I was struggling 100%. But luckily, I was able to find help in therapy, and I'm so much better where I'm at now. And like, with school, I would have thought like, oh, I'm fine. Like, all summer I worked on my mental health. All summer, like, I made sure that I was on my A game, that I was gonna be okay. Like, but dude, like, when you're in law school, when you're under stress, so many things, at least for me, so many things came up that I thought that I was healed from. So many things from my childhood, like, all these different emotions were coming over me. And like, I remember saying to myself, like, I literally feel like I'm drowning. Like, I was gasping for air. Like, I felt like I was in a chokehold. Like, law school had me in a chokehold. And it was like, I don't like that I felt that way. And, you know, it's like, there's nothing I could do to stop stuff going on in my life, personal, family health, like my own health, trying to balance school. Midterms were hard because not only did you have to study, but you had to keep up with the same amount of readings, and they would not make the readings any less. Like, I swear to God, I sometimes felt like my professors were adding more on purpose because they knew we were going through midterms. And even though it's not like that, and I know it's not, it felt like that because, like, we've had readings, like 60 pages, 70 pages of readings that we never had to do at the beginning of the semester. And I'm just like, well, no, like, we're literally in the middle of midterms. But you know what? I dealt with it. I got through it, and that's all I need to say from that, because midterms were hard, but there was not a lot of stress with them because there were only like 15% of your grade versus your final 60%, 70%, which is so crazy. And I mean, moving on from midterms, going up until like finals, it was hard and it was crazy. Sometimes I'd wake up and I'd be like reciting rules, or I'd be dreaming that I was in court saying something about a case, because that's how much I was studying. And my first final was like a legal memo that I had for my writing class, which that one I enjoyed writing because it was just like a research paper. But I kid you not, I turned it in with 1 minute to spare before it was due. I spent all day writing that paper, perfecting that paper. So that was that. I turned it in, boom, ready to go. Next final was my criminal law one, which I love criminal law. And to me, that one was fun because I love the subject and I thought it was super interesting. So studying for that didn't feel that crazy. But girl, let me tell you, the final, I was like, what? Not that I didn't know what was on the material, like, not that I didn't know what the questions were asking me, but the way the professor wrote down the final, I was just like, oh my God, like, this woman really threw us a curveball. And I was like, oh my God. And like, the crazy thing about finals is that you only get 3 hours, and 3 hours seems like a lot, but it really is not. You have 2 hours to write 2 essays, so 1 hour each, and then on top of that, your last hour is multiple choice. In those 2 hours, those 2 essays, you just went the 2 hours straight. No one told you, okay, your hour's up, time to work on the second one. No, it was like, you had to manage your own time. And it was basically like up to us to decide what essay had more to talk about, which one would have more weight in terms of grading, and then like crank it out, like just start writing. And the thing is that I type kind of slow, so when I was typing, like, sometimes my fingers would get like stuck because I was like, oh my God, like, I'm freaking out, you know, like, this is my final, like, I have to finish this, like, I cannot afford to not finish it. So luckily I was able to finish all my finals. I was able to finish everything, but those 2-3 hours would go by so fast. And to me, before, I thought, wow, this is so crazy, like, I could never imagine myself writing or sitting down for 3 hours to take an essay. And now I'm just like, 3 hours was not enough, like, give me 2 more hours, like, I'll write the perfect essay for you. So it definitely was crazy in that sense, that you would pull really long study sessions, like all-nighters maybe even, and then when it came down to the test, like and they'd sit you down in a room full of like 70 people, or at least in my school I'd sit down next to 70 people, and it was like one seat apart, and they would give us like earplugs, and they were like, all right, go, like just go. So like you could feel the tension, you could feel the stress, you could feel the anxiety in the room when everybody was typing away. And it's like everybody has the same prompt, everybody has the same amount of time. So at that point, it's like up to you if you mess it up or not. And I did hear some horror stories, and luckily it didn't happen to me, but I did hear other classmates say like I answered the wrong thing, or I didn't read that the prompt said I can't talk about this and I talked about that. So it's like literally anything could go wrong. Like if you wake up that morning and you're not feeling well, and like that could throw you off your game like that. So what I did to try to stay in my game and try to just be relaxed is like the night before I watched Wonder Woman, and I watched Black Widow, like all these like fun like Disney movies of women that are in power and that are empowering. And I went to sleep with that thought. And in the morning, I played like my corridos, I played my banda to get me in a good mood. I drank some coffee, just like my regular schedule. And then I show up to my test. And then after, I would take the day off, because like, why am I going to continue to study when I just did a brutal 3-hour test? Like, no. So I'd take the day off, and then I wouldn't study until the next day. But they were just crazy. My first 2 finals, I got used to the structure. I got used to sitting down for 3 hours, nonstop typing and all of that, nonstop thinking at a very, very high level. And everything was closed book. So I had to memorize every single rule, every single sub rule, every case, everything I had to memorize. And I'm so proud of myself, honestly, because 1, I did it. 2, I memorized everything, and 3, there was not one question that I sat there and I was like, I don't know this. Like, I'm so thankful, and I thank God 100%. And even though I haven't gotten my grades back yet, I'm like, I did that. I don't care if I got a C. I mean, I do care. I don't care if I'm at the top of my class. As of now, I did it. As a first generation Latina woman of color, I would have never imagined myself being able to think at that high level, being able to perform at that level, and being able to be okay. Like, to me, I already won. Like, to me, I'm already like I did it, you know? And it's just my first semester. Obviously, there's going to be more trial and error next semester and the following years. But within that, I'm still proud of myself because I did it. And I never would have thought, I never even imagined how law school finals would be like. So the fact that I was able to do it, and I'm alive and I'm okay and I'm healthy, like, I already won, like, period. I'm already good. I'm basically an attorney already. Just kidding. But anyways, so those were my first 2 finals. But towards my last final, I am going to be completely honest with you all. I experienced my first panic attack. I knew what it looked like, and I know how it felt like because other people have had them around me before, and I know exactly like what to do. But for some reason, I couldn't do that for myself. And I remember standing there crying. I could hardly take deep breaths. I was just gasping for air at that point. Like, I just needed fresh air. And luckily, my friend was able to help me. He came out and he saw how I was, and he kind of was just like trying to make me realize that I'm in control and this is real life and nothing is gonna happen. And I'm so thankful for him, because without him, I probably would have ran off and not taken that final. But luckily, I was able to calm down with what he was helping me with and how he was talking to me and kind of just like making sure I was okay. And to me, that felt like 10 minutes, but in reality, it only lasted 2. So, I mean, it was my first panic attack, and it was the first time that like I felt that way. And I'm so glad that God was able to control how I was feeling, and he sent literally an angel on earth, my friend, to help me be calm, because if he didn't help me, I probably would have left. I would have not sat down and taken that final. And it did throw me off a little bit, I'm not gonna lie. But luckily, I finished the final, and it is what it is at this point. So finals was so crazy for me. Finals was, it tested me and it showed me what I can do, and it's nothing compared to what I thought I was able to do. Like in undergrad, I was like, oh yeah, like, you know, chilling, nothing. But here, me puse las pilas y le eché ganas. Like, I've never worked so hard in my life like I worked in this semester. And at the end of the day, whatever grade I get, whatever ranking I get, I know that I put in my 110%, and that's what matters at this point, you know? Like, moving forward, I'm gonna see, okay, what worked, what didn't work, how could I improve, obviously. Pero like a brown woman of color, first generation Latina, having no one really to guide me, having no one to show me the ropes, having no one to tell me the do's and don'ts of test taking or whatever, I'm so freaking proud of myself. And no one's gonna take that feeling away. No one's gonna tell me that I suck, because I don't. I did so much, and I worked so hard, and I pushed myself so much this semester. That's just a recap of how my first semester went in law school as a woman of color. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and leave a comment down below if there's something that you want me to talk a little bit more in detail about, or something else that you want to know about. Go ahead and leave a comment down below, or you could also message me on my Instagram at Latina Life if you have any specific questions. I do post more day-to-day stuff there, so if you go give that a follow, you'll be able to keep up with me a little bit more, and I'll see y'all later.